Now, to shift gears for a second, every morning I got up at around 4:30 or 5, would go to the river to bathe, meaning pouring cold water in a lota over oneself in the dark. This is up in the Himalayas, so the temperature is sometimes 30, or, you know, it's not really, it's not Tibet, but it's chilly. You're barefoot, right, in the snow and stuff. It's interesting. You develop a thing called dumo, which is body heat, which is a way of working with the inner thing, so you create the heat. And for example, one of the Tibetan initiations about dumo in the Tibetan sects is when a guy is really ready for the initiation, they take the group out to a riverbank in the sub-zero wind, and they sit naked by the river, and they dip sheets into the river and put them, they cut a hole in the ice, dip sheets in them, and put the sheets on the backs of these guys, and how many they can dry with their own body during the night is the measure of how high they are when they pass that initiation. 2 glasses of milk a day, internal heat. Where's it all leading? You know, what have we Westerners been doing all this time? What do we think this body's all about? I met a yogi who had been buried alive for 3 years. You know? It's like a siddhi, it's a power, it's a little feat. It's like being a high wire walker. I mean, it doesn't take you to enlightenment. He wakes up at the end of 3 years, he's just where he was when he went to sleep. You know? However, it's impressive. And his arm was all eaten away because they hadn't packed him right, and the ants had eaten away one arm. And I talked to him about, I talked with the people that were there about how he did it. And I was told that the only amount of oxygen you need really is for your brain cells and your heart muscle. And that your cells store plenty of oxygen for that purpose. And that's why when you do go into samadhi, you do stop breathing. And when I first started to do pranayama and went through that little place, which I'll tell you about in a minute, it scared me because in my model, you don't stop breathing. That's it for your body. All right, after the bath, back into the, by the little coal stove, coal brazier. Then breathing exercises, pranayama, and asanas, meaning hatha yoga. Then chai, tea, by around 7:30. Then I usually would read something from the Gita or from the Tao or from some holy book. I was only allowed to read the books of realized beings. And that's a very subtle and interesting point. See, when you read a book written by a guy who's writing about realization, what you're really getting from him is all the reasons why he isn't a realized being. See? I mean, some of the great Westerners that are writing beautiful, insightful books about Eastern method, all they're really doing at the vibrational level is they're taking people on their own trip as to why they're not the realized being themselves. And therefore, rather than being typhoid Tessie, you know, that kind of carrier, and getting involved in that, the rule of the game is you read only books written by people who made it. You can read the writings of Ramakrishna, you can read the writings of Ramana Maharshi, you can read the writings of Gautama Buddha, you can read the writings of Christ, and read the writings of Krishna and Ram and so on. All the rishis in India. You know? But you don't read all the ones that we would look to as really good books in the field. Good books in the field. That's study, which is part of niyama, which is part of the second arm. So I'd read a little bit of something maybe from the book of Tao, and then I would reflect on it for a while, and then go into a formal meditation for about an hour, which I'll explain later. Then around 11, I'd write a little bit for an hour. I was sort of writing notes and ideas and working on a little book, I guess. Then around 12, my meal was placed outside the door. Sometimes at around 11, instead of writing, the teacher would come and he'd teach me for an hour or so. We'd sit with chalkboards talking to one another and he'd be teaching me. He'd like say, if you wear leather on your feet, the whole world is covered with leather. So you'd write that first. So I'd think about that, and makes pretty good sense. Everywhere you walk is leather. If you're wearing leather on your feet, you think it's you, but it's just the shoes, it's your foot. Yeah. Then he'd say, if you think of God, everywhere there's God. Same way. In other words, then he would say, desire is the trap. Desirelessness is moksha, meaning liberation. Desire is the creator. Desire is the destroyer. Desire is the universe. And what he was saying to me is, your desires create your universe. You desire sexual gratification, you live in a world full of sex. You desire peace militantly, you live in a militant world. When you are a peaceful being, you live in a peaceful universe. Because the vibrations that go out from you are peaceful, and the people that are involved in them experience greater feelings of wanting to be peaceful. It's simple as that's the way it works.